Evening all. Welcome back to another Scribal in the Dining Room with Camille. Hooray. Hi, Lisbeth. Hi, Gwen. We've got two. Excellent. This is Gold Leaf 101. We're going to take you through how to do gold with modern materials. I don't use gesso or bowl. I haven't gotten into that yet. I am a big fan of Scribal as a service versus Scribal as art. You know, both are good, but all the shiny, yes, hello Colette, hello Mikkel, hello Kenrick, hooray, all the people. Um, anyway, there's two aspects of Scribal in the SCA, lots of aspects, but two of which is, Scribal as an art versus Scribal as a service. And art is service, service is art. But the modern materials will often allow us to finish scrolls and get them out in a quicker means than going pure period all the time. So I use modern gold leaf sizing. I use backed gold because I can't be bothered and frustrated to deal with loose leaf gold. You need different things for the different types, and I'm all about ease of beauty. So we'll get started with going through kind of the materials to do raised gilding, and we'll do some flat gilding later. But hopefully everybody's got their little bookmark piece drawn again. If not, follow along. So first steps. We've got our miniatum. This is, again, a modern acrylic gilding size mirror gloss. The brand is Kolner. You can get it, as Gwen discovered, on Amazon, as well as through John Neal booksellers. Support our local Scadian businesses in this time of weirdness, if we can. They are Scadians. I'm not sure where they're out of, but that's a wonderful place to get that. So, miniatum. Straight out of the bottle for me is too thick and a little gloopy, and it doesn't behave quite how I want it to. So what I do is take one of these little paint pots. If you have old paint by number kits kicking around the house, you can sometimes clean these out. But you can also buy them. This wasn't on the initial materials list that I posted for the class, but any little container with a tight fitting lid will work just as well. But these are nice because I've had miniatum in them for quite a while, and it hasn't dried out, which is great. Little lid always sticks on that. Brand new bottle, love it. So what I do to mix my own custom slightly thin miniatum, got a little dropper of water there. We'll move this out of the way so it doesn't get a mess. And red ink, or red gouache if you have it. The ink I like because it doesn't have the particulate in it quite so much. Shake that up a bit. So take your little paint pot, and I'm going to fill it right to below the it's not the rim, but it's where the lid would sit. So not quite full. You want to leave a little space for adding the water. So we just pour that in slowly like so. That. Close your original bottle up tight and hope it doesn't spill all over. Okay, there we go. Stability. Take your eyedropper and add 8 drops. No more, no less. Well, you find what works for you. What works for me is 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then open up our bottle of ink here and take a toothpick and kind of swirl it around and get the cat hair out of it. That's important. And then that should be enough. You want to color this just enough so that you can see it. I like the clear Mini Autumn from John Neal because I can color it slightly pink if I'm doing regular yellow gold, and if I'm doing silver leaf, which I use Palladium for, because actual silver leaf will tarnish, I can turn that blue. And it gives the metals just a little bit of background reflection and an undertone that helps it match the period manuscript. So there we go. Slightly pink, slightly liquidy, Mini Autumn. Cap that, set that over there. So for your brushes, when you're applying this, you don't want to use your very best brush. It's going to get kind of gluey and gooey and gross. But you do want one that has a reasonable point on it still, so you can get into the tight spaces. This is my sort of Mini Autumn kit here. I've got 2 larger brushes and 3 smaller ones. This one is a 10-0 liner. Let's dip that in the water. So it's a little bitty. I don't use that one much. Probably the one I use most often is the green one. That's an old 2-0 round. And this one here, which is an old 3. So not the greatest tips on either of those, but it's enough. You don't need precision when you're doing larger areas like we have tonight. So step 1 here, to make it match the source, this is the only time where I will encourage use of a micron pen. You can use them, they are archival, but when you look at a micron versus India ink or walnut or iron gall, the micron looks gray, and that makes me sad. I like nice sharp blacks. When we're doing, if it needs a black outline, it's going to have a darn black outline. So, but since we are putting gold all around this just sort of gives you a visual barrier of where your gold goes and where it does not. Oftentimes I will outline everything that's getting gilded in this pen. That helps me not forget areas, though sometimes I forget to outline them and then I forget to gild them. So it gets, we play catch up sometimes. Gold, like gold paint, goes down first before you do any of your other painting. It's more important with gilding because gold leaf sticks to everything, including paint. It will not stick to the paper, so that's a useful thing. So like using your gouache, we are pushing puddles around. Larger areas up here, take the larger brush. We'll be using both. Start with the big one though. And load up the brush with some Mini Autumn. There's kind of a little droplet on the end of the brush, and we'll just start putting it on the page. I started in the middle and sort of pushed towards the edges and into the corner. and move that puddle around. Now we're doing this on Bristol board, which is a paper, either smooth or vellum texture, it does not matter, whichever you prefer. Illuminators often prefer vellum, I've seen, and the calligraphers like the smooth, because it has the pen glide across the page a little better. I think this is a smooth one. But you just sort of get it on there and blob it around. So with the Bristol board, it is porous. It's a paper. Your Bristol's your Canson brand, other watercolor papers, if you use watercolor papers, they're all non-coated, fairly porous paper. So what happens with the Miniatum when you put it down, it actually dries from both directions. It dries and sets from the top, but there's also some air movement through the paper itself, and will set it from the underside also. This prevents ripples and buckling and little aberrations, wrinkles that you get if you try to do it on Pergamonata, which has a coating on it. And the drying, the setting only happens from the top down. So you'll get buckling and wrinkling and all kinds of frustration in doing this with Perg. The secret, I think, I've not been successful in a while on Perg using Miniatum, but I think the secret on Pergamonata is many, many layers of Miniatum ink, which is an even thinner version of Miniatum. You can put it through a quill or a nib and do gold lettering and line work with it. It's slightly different formulation than the regular Miniatum. I'm sure you could just thin down regular Miniatum to a point where it's much thinner and do the same, but since they have the product, I like to use the product. But Perg, if you put down too thick of a layer, and if you put down too thick of a layer or the Miniatum is too thick on Bristol board, you'll get some wrinkling as well, but not as violently, not as often, and not as obviously. Humidity too, take into account when we're doing gilding with Miniatum. The more humid it is, the longer it will take to dry and set. So patience is key with this. After we put down a layer, don't touch it for at least an hour. So here's where the secret of this class is going to come in. It's a long one. We're not going to sit here and watch paint dry for 2 hours. That would be silly. I have a plan. But patience. Don't touch the puddles, because then you get fingerprints, which may or may not go away, which would be fascinating in your final scroll. However, do you really want your fingerprints out there hanging on somebody's wall? Somehow I don't think so. Yes, ovens and cooking shows aren't really that fast. It's a lie. So the other great thing about the Miniatum here is you don't have to worry too much about getting it perfectly flat. It is a self-leveling product, liquid. So as long as your work surface is fairly level, you won't have one side of your project higher than the others. You do not want to use a fan to help it dry, because then you'll get ocean waves, and though that could be a neat effect, it'll kind of ruin the mirror finish. Incompetent celebrity. Oh, should we have maybe next week or 2 weeks from now? We'll get an incompetent celebrity guest on here. We had the cat last week. We'll see. But yeah, don't use a fan to help it dry because it's not really drying. It's kind of curing. It's setting up. It's like an epoxy. You know, if you've ever worked with epoxy, it doesn't really dry. It just sort of eventually becomes less sticky and hard, and then you can't get your shoes apart or your brake lines, which is the point. So I've switched to the smaller brush here also because we have some smaller areas, but it's still, you know, taking a blob and kind of moving it around and shoving it into where it needs to go. And again, work wet to wet, join your blobs together. Happy little blobs. Kind of work it into corners. You may not get nice sharp lines. The tips of this little acanthus leaf type thing are maybe a little bit rounded when we go to put the gold on it, and we'll see. But there is where the magic of paint comes in, and shading, which will be part 2 of the class. So keep your sheets, do your homework at the end. Your guess of House Wonder. Yes, no, we're not going to invite Mina onto the table. We don't need to gild the cat. I'm sure she'd love it. She would be so sparkly and wonderful. No. See what I said about gold leaf sticking to everything that includes felines. So shiny though, so shiny. Kind of ooze that around there. A lot more dipping with the smaller brush, smaller blobs. But you want to make sure, again, a fairly even, consistent layer. And on Bristol, you can go fairly thick and not get wrinkles. Oh, that's too much of a blob there, so we'll put that in a temporary spot. Fill in that little corner there. And go back to the bigger brush. Larger area, quicker fill in. The larger brush too holds more and lets you move it around easier. And it starts to cure fairly quickly. So don't go back to any spot and try to fix it. Oh, and I think and we're getting into Colette's question before I even looked up to see it. So if it gets mushed in the drying process, try not to do that. But don't go back and try and fix your mistakes, because what this will do is kind of magnify everything. So if, say, you set it somewhere and the paintbrush rolls into it, and then you have lines on it, you can sometimes very carefully scrape it off with an X-Acto knife. It does sort of peel up in a layer. You may have rougher paper underneath it, but when you put the mini autumn on, it should fill in and smooth that out. You know, if I noticed up here in this corner that I had missed a spot, And it was way back at the beginning. If I go back to try and fill in that spot at the wrong time, you may get what looks like a seam, because it's partially cured and then you're putting some new stuff, new product in. So just be careful and pay attention, pretty much. You can do multiple layers, since the source piece has some embossing on it. I elected on the piece will be actually gilding in a few minutes. I did do a second layer of Mini Autumn last night. I let the first one set for about an hour and a half, and then went over the top of it again, just so we have a nice thick pillow that will take the embossing tool. I just lost what I was going to say. Neat. Right. As it cures, it will tend to pull away from the edges a little bit, which again is where you want that nice thick pillow layer to reach the gold all the way in. Did that answer a question? Brush cleaning. Yes, we're going to clean the brushes. So I've capped. We're done with the piece here, so we're just going to let that off to the side. Close your Mini Autumn container, and that will be ready for next time. And to clean the brush, here we go. I'm gonna set this way off to the side. So the only thing I've found that don't you dare. Yeah. We almost had a demonstration of what happens when the scribe's husband threatens to put his finger through the Mini Autumn she just painted, and that was not good. So the best thing I've found to clean the brushes with is less oil. This is a lifetime supply and probably 3 lifetimes worth, but it's really inexpensive at the grocery store. There may be other things we've tried, like Pine Sol. That didn't really work. Normally I'd do this in the bathroom, but then you'd just be staring at an empty chair, which isn't very interesting. So pour just a little bit in there. I put it in my hand, just sort of mush the bristles around in it. It'll turn a little bit cloudy. But the less oil will get off even Mini Autumn that has set for a while, which is nice, because in the several alternate cleaning products, they failed to properly clean the brushes, and it made kind of a mess. But I saved my slightly crappy, but still useful Mini Autumn brushes. So that's pretty good there. Put that away. And we'll just rinse in our rinse water, because we won't be needing that anymore this evening. So part 2 is later, but part 1.5 is just sort of a little card. We've got the Mini Autumn ink here. It comes in a container just like the Mini Autumn, but it is slightly tinted pink right out of the bottle, and it's, as I said, quite thin. So it'll go through a nib, and you can use smaller brushes. So this is a flat gild, whereas the Mini Autumn is a raised gild. So this, when it dries flat and almost gives a matte appearance to the gilding. So it's a little trickier. There we go. There's a brush. And with this, you kind of do brush it on, because you do want it to be thinner on the page. But again, you want good coverage. Also, you don't want to brush it down to a thin layer. Another question on the thing, brush soaps. I don't know. Yeah, well, so yeah, you could try it. I can't remember if we tried Simple Green or not, and if it worked or not. So I have no good answer for you there. I do know, regular soap and water will take some of it off, but not much. It needs something, this is, Less Oil is heavy duty for oil and grease, household and laundry stains. All right, this is not an advertisement. I'm not sure what the active ingredient is in this, but, or what makes the magic. I just know it works. So you could certainly try your Simple Green, and let me know how it goes. So the Mini Autumn ink, while I was doing the explaining there, the layer I put down is already starting to set, which is great. So this, you want to let the Mini Autumn set for at least an hour, preferably 2, preferably 3, depending on how large an area you've covered. The larger the area, the longer it's going to take to set. Same is true for the Mini Autumn ink, but even on a large area, it'll set in probably 20 to 30 minutes. So, Izzo! Hello! Good to see you, I guess, is seeing your happy little icon on the screen. Maybe we can gild some pottery later. That would be fun. Oh, there's another thing. Materials. Mini Autumn is good for paper, and we've used it on metal. Max did a medallion on one of the a site token rather, for one of the events that I taught this class at, and I'm not sure if it's still gilded. I would assume it is, as long as it's not disturbed, knocked around too much. Get that off there again and rinse. If you're gilding on leather, give it a try. This is not so good for wood. There's another product out there called Permacal that I believe is what's used for wood and other more porous materials like that. So experimentation is a thing. So we'll put those brushes back. So there is a lovely little flat gilded pea, and it's almost set. We'll let that do its thing for, like I say, 20 minutes or so. Line work, when I've done Mini Autumn ink in just a quill, that's dry in 5 minutes, and you can put the gold right on there practically. So if you're an impatient person, little line work can be doable. Gold leaf. Yeah, no, I personally haven't done gold leaf on anything non-Scribal. But I think it would be fun. We'll have to experiment with that. All right. So, through the magic of television, we have a perfectly dry and set example piece, because I did it last night, so it's not really the magic of television. But anyway, we'll get that out of the way. And when the cat says hi. So, gilding. Step 2. We have the Scribal box of fun. So what you need, oh, I have a few little drops. So, on here, I don't know if we can see that. There are a couple little droplets of mini autumn where I was not so careful with the brush. You can be careful with them. Anyway. But if it's on your scroll, you just take an X-Acto knife and you can kind of flick them off. It's a little bit rubbery and stretchy. And it's kind of weird once it's cured. But we just get that sort of pulled off. And gently scrape the page. You can sort of roll it off like you would rubber cement. And as long as you're careful, if the area you're scraping needs to be painted over, you should still be able to paint over it and not have much of an issue. Calligraphy, of course, I prefer the calligraphy done before I draw a thing except an outline on the scroll, so you shouldn't have to worry about doing ink on top of it. There we go. Fingernails work too for little bitty dots like that. And make obnoxious scratching noises. So there we go. There's a nice cleaner sheet. Put that away. So hopefully all of the parts that are done with mini autumn on that one are the same ones we just did on the sample sheet. So we need glassine, which is a very smooth paper. If anybody remembers when you got to buy stamps that were still lickable, the envelopes they sold them in were actually made of glassine, but you can just buy sheets of it. Planned mistakes so you can show how to fix. Yeah, so, well, let me see. I don't want to, no, we can totally do that.
You were saying the dots.
Oh, the dots, oh, I get it, sorry. Anyway, yes, I totally planned the dots. Absolutely. But that's how you would fix a mistake. Just gentle scraping. Again, patience. Patience is key. So yeah, glassine. This is a couple cotton balls wound into a little poof of silk charmeuse for buffing. You want a smooth stone. This is an amethyst because I like purple. But there's these little, oh, that's the rose quartz, another rock. As long as it doesn't have any burrs, these little glass pebbles are good too. You can buy a bag of them for $1, depending on where you go. If you're fancy, this is an agate dogtooth burnisher. The real purpose of this, or the primary purpose, would be if you were doing gesso. I believe it's slightly abrasive, so this actually helps get the gesso smooth more if it's got any rough areas. But it's useful for pushing the gold into small corners and also for embossing, which we'll demonstrate in a little bit. Scissors, little bitty pair of scissors, helpful for cutting your gold into smaller pieces. He gets himself in trouble enough. Those, Gwen, the burnishers you would get through John Neal or another art supply, calligraphy supply shop. I don't think they have them on Amazon, and I don't think you would want to buy them from Amazon if they did. It's a fairly specialized tool. So, but I honestly, I don't use it as much as I probably could. The little pebbles are good. The little silk poof is probably the thing I use the most, other than the gold. So, LA Gold Leaf Wholesaler, lagoldleaf.com is, they have the best prices, and I have been very happy with the quality of the gold leaf that I've gotten from them.
Finger on it for a moment.
Oh, my finger's on it. Oh, right. So we can hang on. We'll get the. There we go. Can everybody see that? Hopefully, everybody can see that. So yeah, their website might be different, but this one still directs to the place to buy it. You don't need to get 24 karat, 23, or even 22. Will get you the same. Same shine, same color. If you start going much lower than that, it starts to look off. Not quite as bright, shiny gold. Get the genuine gold. Don't get imitation. It, for one, won't stick to the mini autumn. Mini autumn is made for use with gold, silver, palladium leaf. Imitation gold leaf is made of a metal still, but I think it's thicker, or it just doesn't stick. I tried. I got the $5 30 pack of great big gold leaf sheets, and they're still sitting in my craft room because they just don't work with the materials that we have. They're very pretty, very shiny, but not gold. So that's the gold. There's also white gold, but we've found over time that tends to turn yellow, which is awfully frustrating because we want it to stay nice and silver. For silver, and you can get this through John Neal, this is patent palladium leaf. I'll just bring that out to kind of show you. And it's expensive, and we don't use silver very much, more so now with the silver awards. But go halvesies on a book with somebody if you think you want some. You really don't use it that often, so this will last a long, long time. So like the gold, there's 25 sheets in here. Order of operations on palladium and gold leaf: you put the gold down first, because gold sticks to everything, including palladium. So if you have, say, a piece that has gold and palladium in close proximity, gold and silver, you don't want to put the palladium down because it'll all turn gold, because the gold will stick right to it. Richard Crow's Knighting Scroll, I believe, Duchess Catherine did it, and it's a checkerboard in the back of gold and silver, and it made me do things in court, and it was amazing. And I had to corner her and say, "How did you do that?" She said, "Gold first." Okay, answer given. So let's see, I think that's everything on there. So there's transfer or patent gold, and there's loose leaf gold. For ease of use, transfer is the way to go, because it is on a tissue paper backing. This is a half sheet here because I've used it for something else. But you can move it around, you can touch it, and don't touch the gold. But it's a lot easier to manipulate and work with. So if you're using loose leaf gold, there's this velvet pillow and a lovely bristly brush you use, and a gold knife, and it's nerve-wracking, and I don't like it. So we're using the backed stuff. So to start, you've got your lovely mini autumn laid down. We will cut gently a bit of gold leaf That's approximate size of what you're looking for. Oh, one more thing we need. The brush. Little bitty flat brush. We'll explain that later. But this is about a 3/8 inch, just a short one. Doesn't have to be good. 5/16. There we go. But soft bristles, nothing that's going to mar the finish. So we have our lovely set piece, 2 layers of gold, or 2 layers of mini autumn down. So nice poofy pillows. Take your gold and, yes, what happens if you touch the gold? Gold sticks to everything, including your fingers. Unless you're Julian, gold doesn't stick to his fingers. Much to Caroline's disappointment. So, the mini autumn has set, and this is set overnight, so it's perfectly dry. So you have to reactivate it somehow, and you do that by breathing on it like you were to, say, fog a window. So open mouth, and this is the elegant part. You just breathe, and the humidity in your breath will help wake up the mini autumn. So at this point, you could touch it. Don't, because finger oils are a thing. But now it's activated, and take your gold, shiny side down, and you stick it. Just kind of roll your finger. Don't use your nails, because you will dent the sizing, the mini autumn. And sometimes it peels off like that and drives me crazy. And gently now, because you have gold already stuck down, and you don't want gold all over your living room, just kind of work your way around the project. And you can use, it looks nicest if you're able to get a full sheet covering, a one solid piece covering the mini autumn area. But sometimes, not possible or practical. So you shouldn't have a seam anywhere. The gold will generally stick to itself because gold sticks to everything. And just keep working your way up the piece. That's the bottom. As you go, you can kind of see if you've got empty spaces at all. This one looks pretty good. If you notice that there's one where I'm kind of piece it together and just sort of keep sticking. If you notice a haze on the mini autumn or the gold after you've breathed on it, wait for the haze to clear, because sometimes that haze will stay even after you polish the gold, which is very strange. But I don't know if it's trapped moisture or what. Just give it a 2 count after you breathed on it. Just keep sticking, and sometimes it just sticks wherever it dang well wants to stick. So we'll just move that. So on as it peels and does its thing here, some people will save the flakes to make shell gold out of. I have a little container that I've been building for 12 years, and I probably will never do anything with it, but I have a little container of gold flakes, and that's a very satisfying thing. All right, I think we've got one little spot right in there that needs just a little bit to stick on. And there we go. So everything's covered This is the messy part, you know, but it's shiny and golden messy. That's kind of fun to see. Hi, Selena. Thank you for joining us. So here's where we take the glassine and, nope, excuse me, not the glassine yet, the paintbrush. So your nose grease is magic. It creates a slight sticking charge. I don't know if it's static electric or not, but to get this area here folded over and kind of neaten the gold, just brush it on your nose just a little bit. Breathe on the gold again, gently. Wait for the haze to clear. And then, in theory, oh, that one there, it's kind of, oh, yep, come on. We pick it up and we fold it over and stick it to the gold that's already laid down. And you can use the brush to kind of poke it into areas where it needs poking. And if you do it right and you're very lucky, you don't get a whole lot of flakes going all over. So just sort of fold and tuck and push. And it's doing a little bit of polishing for you at the same time. And again, use a light touch, because you don't want to scuff the surface too much. A nice big piece there will fold. And if you forget there's gold on your brush and you brush your nose, you get a gilded nose. I think Alexander Clark has an award that is the Gilded Nostril. And he's still waiting to give it to somebody, and it's for someone who's trying a new art. So you don't want to actually gild your nostrils, but I think he did when he did his shield, so that's where that came from. There's most of the loose gold kind of anchored down. Now we take the glassine and the dog tooth and very gently kind of rub it over. You don't want to use actual pressure because again, you'll dent your gilding, and we don't want to do that until later when we're doing it on purpose. But this is just to sort of set everything, get your edges in. And you can do this before you do the brushing, just to make sure your edges are set before you go and try and peel them all up. Again, with the stone, sort of around the edges, gently, get everything in there. So there's some shiny happening. And to see if you have, we just gilded the table. To see if you have any gaps in your gilding, if you hold it up, and this isn't going to show on a video here, but I'm holding it up to my light above me, and if you're looking through the back of the paper and you have any thin spots, you'll be able to see light through them, because the gilding pretty much makes it a solid layer, because it's metal. You're looking through a sheet of metal, even though it's, what, 3 microns thick? I don't even know. Very thin anyway. Recommendation, don't do this outside on a windy day, especially if you're working with loose gold, because it will be very pretty and very sad as it all goes flying through the air. So Oh, where was it? I had a couple little spots. Right there on the side and near the top. So I've got a little thin bit right here and right in there. So we'll reactivate and see if the gold will stick to itself. We blow, we wait for the mist to clear, and we stick it down and we have success. I don't remember where they are, right there. And we'll get that one on there. Sometimes the second layer of gold just doesn't stick. And that's all there is to it. I haven't figured out the magic to get it to do it. Normally, so there's also available on LA Gold Leaf is something called double gold, which I think is just a double thickness leaf. Some people like it because you only, have to put down one layer of gold leaf and you get, instant, no worries coverage. I've never really needed to go and do a second layer over everything, so I've just always gone with the regular single layer 23 karat. So there's that. Now we take our little silk poof, and the silk, mildly abrasive, just enough to polish and get any loose flakes off. You don't want to smash it on the gold. Just sort of whisk it over. I've got a little wrinkle there. Again, not a whole lot of pressure. But this just polishes everything, gives you a nice shine. Get that a little bit off here. Sometimes this is what happens too when you have multiple layers. Kind of work it in and become there we go. Starting. You don't want to polish too much because you'll polish off all the gold. And sometimes you can put down a second layer after you've polished and burnished like this, but not often have I had good luck with that. So I don't know what this guy's doing. And now, I mean, you can kind of touch it with your finger, and he's just gonna hang out there. That's just what it's gonna do. But we have here one very shiny mirror gloss gilded background. Yay, all the shiny. So check on our P over here and see if that's set. So that's not quite set. I can still see quite a bit of shine, so we'll wait on that one to do anything with it, and we'll talk about embossing. So you can use all kinds of things as long as it's got a decent hardness to it. You don't have to use a whole lot of pressure. There aren't a lot of embossed manuscripts out there, but there are some. The exemplar tonight being one of them. It's a mid-15th century book of hours from Italy. That's at the Walters Museum in Maryland. More information than that they did not have. Audrey and I are thinking it says it's miniature in their catalog description, and miniature can mean a lot of things. Miniature could mean 1 inch by 2 inches, but we are kind of thinking it's in the 3 to 4 inch range, 3 by 4, just based on how the calligraphy looks. But what those medieval scribes could do and Renaissance scribes was pretty astonishing with some little teeny tiny brushes, teeny tiny nibs. So the embossing on this manuscript is just a series of little dots that basically outlines the all the gilding. So this is an embossing style, a ballpoint stylus, and it's got a little bitty one and a slightly bigger one. I've used leather punches before to get floral patterns or little round circles and diamonds. They're downstairs. I don't have them with me because we weren't using them. But pretty much, anything that'll hold a point. This is a nice dog tooth burnisher here because it has a really nice sharp point. You can get some that are just sort of rounded oval agates, and those are great for burnishing, but not so great for embossing. Diapering is another thing that's done on the gold backgrounds. The Hunting Book of Gaston Phoebus has a lot of gilded backgrounds, and there's line work in it. And for line work, I use a pizza cutter, just a little one. And you do it through the glassine, but basically I'm not going to do it on this. You just take the glassine and put it down and run your pizza cutter right down it. Nice even pressure, not too firm because you'll cut through the page and we don't want that. But yeah, tools everywhere. Anything can be a Scribal tool. Love it. So for this one, and if you're using a leather punch, a leather embossing tool, there's all kinds of things in my Scribal box, Gwyn. It's very exciting. All the toys. If you're using leather punches, if you're using the pizza cutter, anything that requires any amount of force, the larger leather embossers, I have a 4-ounce hammer, just a small hammer that you want to have something underneath it, underneath your piece so it doesn't dent your table or cut through the paper. So a scrap piece of mat board or a cereal box front, cut apart a cereal box, just a little bit of padding that's somewhat resilient so you don't dent the heck out of your table or ruin your piece, is a good thing to have. But as far as embossing goes, we just take our little tool here, and it is literally as simple as squishing little dots into the gold. I think that might be too big, so we're going to switch over to the little one. There we go. And in the exemplar, the dots weren't particularly even, but to our modern eye, you can make them even or not. But pretty much what they did is, again, just outlined everything. And the whole book is like that. All the miniatures in the book, they're all done with this dot detail around it. And it's a really cool source if you haven't flipped through it on your own yet. The link to it, the Walters they've got all kinds of illuminated manuscripts and they're all amazing. The link is in the class form, so you should be able to find that. But the digital catalog, I don't know how searchable it is. I haven't explored too much past this one. But you just kind of go around and do little dots on everything. You can also do line work with the little tool here. But again, like with your very fancy pizza cutter lining tool, you want to do it through glassine. Otherwise, the gold may peel up, or you'll be able to see your miniatum through the gold work. If the gold can kind of smudge and move a bit. So 18 million little dots. But what's nice about the miniatum is it will keep the dent. We went through a period a couple years ago where what we were originally being sold to do the gilding with was called permacal. It was labeled as permacal. And then the original source of the permacal ran out. So we all ordered new permacal, and it was terrible because it's not made for paper gilding. So before we discovered the miniatum, we went through a whole gamut of different products that some of them worked okay and some of them worked not at all. Glass paint was one of them, and that worked okay, but it didn't hold a dent. So trying to emboss with it was impossible. Not even next to impossible. You just couldn't do it. So when we found miniatum and discovered that it was probably the permacal we'd been using all along, that was a very exciting day in the Malagentian and I think Eastern Scribal community. So I'll just finish up all the dots. I think we're there. So it's shiny and dented and really kind of cool. Oh, and there's Mina. There's Mina voicing her opinion. She doesn't think it's nearly as cool. So I saved a little spot here, just using the dog tooth. It gives a slightly bigger dot, but just different with the handle. Nice little row of dots right along there. So that's Gilding 101. Okay, so you did hear the cat. Yes, she's very chatty, even at 4 o'clock in the morning when we'd rather she not be chatty. So we're going back to our P here. I'm going to touch it, even though I told you all not to, just to see if it is actually sticky. And it's not. So it's just shiny. So I'll set that aside because that's all done. So in about 3 hours, if you've done your miniatum, you can do your gold and then it'll look just like this. So save this because in 2 weeks we're going to paint all the background stuff or the foreground stuff because the gold is really the background. Anyway, I'll set that aside for now. Get another little sheet of gold here. So if you were to put gold down too early on miniatum, it will stick. It will definitely still stick. But what may happen is you'll get dents or ripples in it. It may set strangely because not only is it trying to dry through the paper, it's trying to dry through the gold. And it may continue to be sticky for longer than it should be. Is that popping sound the tool popping through the gold? Yeah, it's kind of, it sort of sticks in the miniatum because the miniatum is flexible So it's a bit of a pull and release. It may have also been just a ticking sound because my board is hollow. But yeah, it holds it for a second until and then you pull it out, and it does make a little pop. So yeah. But here we are. Breathe on it, and I think I cut it just a little too narrow to do it either direction, so we'll do it partial here and get that little loose bit and hit the bottom. Oh, and I missed the bottom. There we go. So this again is flat gilding with the Miniatum ink. Again, you can build up multiple layers of Miniatum ink and get kind of the same effect as Miniatum. Some people prefer it. I don't have that much time to wait for things to dry in between most of the time, or to set rather. So depending on, it all depends on what the project is, and how much time you have and how fussy you want to be. If I ever have to gild on Pergamonata again, I think building up 20 layers of Miniatum, or Miniatum ink, if it needs to be a raised gilded area, I just have to learn patience, because that's the way to do it. So when I used the little silk poof through the glassine, because I don't want to burnish this yet, but for small areas like this, it's good for getting everything pressed down and into the corners. So we'll do the nose thing again. Gentle breath. And we should be able to kind of fold all the excess gold onto itself. Yes, like I say, sometimes it sticks better than others. And sometimes you have little gold flakes everywhere. There's that. And a quick little brush over with the poof. And there we are. And we can see, I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but we can see where I was a little heavy-handed with the Miniatum ink right there. Is that better at all? I can't tell. Oh, no, this way. There we go. Where you get a little bit shinier here, and then it goes back to a more matte there, if you can see that. So the Miniatum ink, you have to really pay pretty close attention to when you're laying it down if you want a consistently smooth, flat layer. And there's a little, right there is a little bit where the gold kind of split. So we'll get the gold back out here. See if we can fix that little crease. Flat and raised on the same scroll doesn't really matter, as long as it's all, like I said, you want to do all your gold and then do your palladium if you're working with palladium leaf. But no, you can put down, your Miniatum and your Miniatum ink at the same time, and then gild it all at the same time. The open period for each is about the same. It's just the drying time that's a little bit different. So what you could do, and I think I've done this. Maybe I haven't often had both flat and raised gilding on the same scroll. But what I've done in the past is put down the miniatum ink and gild that, and then put down the miniatum and let that cure overnight. And then once I do the gilding the next day, we can just move straight into painting. But it's whatever fits your time schedule, really. Yeah, I talked in circles for a while, but I think I answered your question. I think, and I'm looking up the. Okay, good. I'm glad something made sense. I'm looking up the chat. What happens if you touch the gold? Oh, okay. No, we answered that already. Okay. So we're gonna try and get that one little crease taken care of. Breathe and squish. And that stuck quite nicely. I love it. Always make sure, so the Book of Gold, you've got your pages, and then there's orange tissue in between everything, and just make sure the orange tissue is always between your leaf sheets. I don't think they'll stick to each other, but it's nice to just kind of keep everything nice and neat. So a few months ago, we did in the East, I needed gold leaf, and I decided I would see if anybody else needed gold leaf. And lagoldleaf.com here does a discount if you buy a certain number of books. They have the individual book, and then there's a 4-pack and a 10-pack and a 20-pack. And I think we ended up ordering, when all was said and done, like 24 or 25 packs of gold. So the price was a lot lower per book. And I had to sign for it, and it was like $1,000 worth of gold. We have gilded the East Kingdom. It's magnificent. But worth doing in, it's worth going in with people if you know you're going to need, more of you are going to need the gold. So save a little money. And there we go. And there's no more line on my lovely capital P. Let's do a quick burnish, quick shine with the silk. And there we are. One flat gilded P and one raised gilded acanthus leaf background. So there we are. That's Gold Leaf 101. Go forth, gild the world, make it all shiny, and keep, like I say, keep this sheet for next time, because we're going to do some acanthus leaf painting and fill in the colors and make it all pop. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining me. Oh, there's the cat. Do we have the cat? Yeah. Very happy. He slept through the whole class. I hope he learned something. But anyway, yeah, thank you everybody for joining me in the dining room again. Oh yes, yay, thank you. And we'll see you all virtually in 2 weeks. So everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you.